Hey, Cessalee.
Hi, Shannon. How are you?
I'm great. It's so good to see you.
You too, as always.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this interview because boundaries is something so many givers and people who care struggle with. And I just loved the opportunity that we had to work together. I guess it's been a year and a half now. We got introduced
Yeah.
because we were both speaking at the Compassion Revolution conference in Australia.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Mary Freer, for putting the worlds together.
I mean, I love that the way Mary's brain works and connecting us. And we created what I think was this really extraordinary plenary session about boundaries, combining your framework and my framework. And what we're doing now today is this interview for my Substack, which is mostly leaders in the health and social care space. And many of them are already familiar with the containers, the way I think about boundaries. So we'll primarily focus on your framework and how one of the tools you have that I find so useful for how to rethink boundaries and be like I challenge people to be like, how can you be generous and sustainable with them? So really how to be creative with your boundaries. But before we get started, I wonder if you would introduce yourself a bit because you have for this audience, an unusual and exciting background.
Sure. Well, I'm Cessalee Stovall. I use she, her pronouns. I am currently living on Duwamish land, which is commonly known as Seattle. But for the last, well, 7 years before last year, I've been living in Australia and working as a equity and inclusion consultant, and an intimacy director and coordinator for film, TV, and screen.
And something that I think is so interesting, Cecily, is how intimacy coordinators became a thing in the theater and TV and film space. So if you could say a little bit about that, because I think that evolution is helpful for understanding where we all are in the world about thinking about boundaries and how to negotiate and take a responsibility and accountability for boundaries in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, the kind of title intimacy coordinator was sort of developed around 2017. So that's when, from the film industry particularly, we were going through the Me Too movement and really getting vocal around what it meant to support safer spaces in specifically film, but that, as many things do, kind of went from that microcosm out into the world. And so intimacy coordinators came in, really to help support scenes of intimate moments, which can absolutely be things of sexual nature or conduct or thing like that, but they can also be things that I often say are more intimate than what you would do with a stranger at a grocery store. So, a birthing a child or losing a parent or elderly care, any of that kind of stuff can be considered intimacy work. And the role of the intimacy coordinator director is to really support the storytelling desires of the directors, the boundaries of the artists, and the budget or the needs of the producer and the productions, finding that Venn diagram and making sure that you are helping the storytelling be as clear as possible to the audience.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for that. So this emerged, 5, 6 years ago. And so you developed this framework that you use as a consultant and a coach, an intimacy coach to help people think about boundaries. So could you broadly just share what that framework is?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the wider framework comes from intimacy directors and coordinators. So it's the 5 C's: context, consent, communication, choreography, and closure. But really, I think where I dive in, where I get the most excited is around, developing and identifying boundaries in a way that feels inclusive and as if everyone is contributing and everyone is a part of that, but it's participatory. It's not individual. I'm sure you can imagine, if you are late one night filming and the director says, okay, but this time let's try it with, shooting from this other angle, or let's try it a little bit more fill in the blank, and an actor not necessarily knowing how to say, no, that doesn't feel good to me, or, um, yes, I can do that, except for I don't really like that side of my body to be shown, in the heat of things, in the heat of the moment. Really, the yes, if, no, but framework that I've come up with is where I think it's really useful for not just artists, not just directors, not just film industry and TV, but is really useful in business, in life, with partners, with children. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what you said right there is so important too. It's like we can have this idea of what we want our boundaries to be, but we don't know what it is till we get into the work of things.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's in the midst of a crisis or really a sprint around work, or as you said in these late hours, I would say when we're starting to feel tired or we're worn down by something, that we can come into these challenges. And so having this tool is so useful because it's super actionable, which is something that I'm excited to give the readers of the Substack today. But before we go to that tool, which we'll practice, both you and I have talked about how there's lots of misconceptions about boundaries in the world. And I'm wondering if you might share from your world of theater
Mhm.
and filming and intimacy coaching, what are, how you think about boundaries as misconceptions. And I'll share that too, because I do think there's something fascinating about taking boundary frameworks from a completely different world and then realizing, oh, some of these same truths apply in the health and social care space as well.
Yeah, I'd say one real key misconception, it's kind of a two-parter, but is that an intimacy director is there to be the sex police, is there to like be the enforcer of what you can and can't do, and that we take autonomy away from the artist. And I think in an ideal situation, actually, it's quite the opposite. We are there to ensure that people can speak up about their own boundaries, that they can share their own needs. So we're there to advocate for individuals stating what they need, but we're not there to set the boundaries unless it's, in a rider or something legal, the production is required. And I think that puts the onus back on the individual to be able to state their boundaries and to be able to be clear about what they are. We can help clarify or investigate, but we don't set the boundaries for people. And I think a lot of times um, there's this assumption that boundaries must be set up rigidly from the outside, but it's just not that the case. And as you said, context always comes first. So if I told you, Shannon, well, if we were in real life, but if I told you I'm going to touch the front of your body, you might be like, that's weird. No thanks. But if I said, Shannon, I'd love to give you a hug, we would probably hug. We would be touching the front of each other's bodies, and yet the context changes that. And so my job is not to say, don't touch the front of anybody's body. My job is to say, what's the context in which this will work for you? And so that's my job. We're not the police. We're actually I don't know, something else.
Yeah. Well, a facilitator of some sort. That's what I think it is. And I think we want, when we're overwhelmed, when we don't know the answer, or when in this situation, when we've had our boundaries crossed before, it might feel nice for someone else to know what the answer is. We
Yeah.
want to outsource that knowing to someone else. And the invitation around creating containers, as I talk about them, or as you're going to teach us, to really think about boundaries as an invitation to be really, really present, which takes time and space, right? And then also a knowing, like inside of ourselves, what is right for me at this time in this situation, and then being able to communicate it.
Yeah, and so much like what you're saying is so beautiful because I think it also requires, we often think that we just have to trust the other person or we just have to trust the system. But actually we have to find a way to trust ourselves that what we want is okay and that we can actually pull that up for ourselves and think about it and trust that whatever those responses we're having are true and real. And I think it can be hard sometimes to retake that accountability piece and say that your boundaries are your own, especially if you don't have a way to articulate those boundaries.
Yeah. Well, what I love about what you're going to teach us today is that this is a way sometimes for me of figuring it out. And it's also a way I can backtrack or rewind if I find I've overcommitted or undercommitted too, right? So
Yeah.
why don't we dive in and you teach this amazing tool or
Oh,
framework?
okay. All right. So I refer to this as the yes, if, no, but framework. So when you're in theater school, we are taught that everybody's heard yes and, right? If you're an improv actor, you're supposed to say yes
Yes.
and that
Just keep going, to lean
just
into it. Yes.
lean in, make it bigger, make it funnier. No isn't funny. That's what they tell you. And I think That's great for acting, but I think the challenge is as artists, we find ourselves in a space where there is a power dynamic that exists, whether that's actor to director or experienced actor to inexperienced actor,
Yes.
or it can be based on gender, it can be based on lots of different things. And so the impetus to say yes, because we've been told people will like working you if you're easy to work with, if you don't make trouble, if you don't make waves, and so all of that comes crashing against our boundaries. And it can often feel like we don't have agency over our boundaries. We just have to say yes. So, the yes, if, no, but framework is a tool to be able to have your yeses be participatory, consensual, and engaged. So, if someone asks you to do something, and instead of just saying, yes, I will do that, you are able to say, yes, if, and offer a condition or a suggestion or something that would make that sit firmly in your boundaries. Or you can flip it and say, no, but. So, no, I won't do that, but I hear and understand and accept the spirit of what you're asking me of, and I'm going to align with that spirit and offer a different suggestion that I am comfortable with. Now, of course, yes and no still exist, but practicing in that yes, if, no, but framework really gives you the ability to, um, theoretically, we are saying no in all of those things, and yet being able to engage and participate in that makes it more accessible. It certainly can help dismantle the threat of the power imbalances as they exist, and it also tells the person who's asking that you're listening, you're engaged, and you want
Yes.
to try to meet them in the middle. And I
And
think
you're
that's
trying to get like so much specificity and clarity, like making sure we're on the same page.
yeah. So
Yeah.
should we try it out?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Oh, there I just did it though. Straight yes. Yes, if you go first.
Okay, great. I love this for us. Shannon, oh, there's a plant in your background.
Yes.
Shannon, will you take a leaf off of your plant?
Um, no, but I'll touch the plant or bring the plant closer to you
Oh, if you bring the plant closer, that would be great. Really, I just wanted to try to see it.
to see it. Yeah, I feel very fond of my plant and how much she's grown, so I don't really want to take a leaf off of her. Look at her.
Oh, she's beautiful. She's bigger than I thought.
Yeah, she's really she's a show off.
So what happened in that is like I just wanted to see the plant. I maybe phrased it in a way that wasn't exactly clear about what I wanted, but you understood. You met me in the middle, and not only did I get to see the plant, everybody watching got to see the plant too, right?
Yes.
Do you want to try one?
I will. So, Cecily, behind you, I see, I think a pink ribbon. Would you put that on like a hat? I guess it's like a pink ribbon onto a yellow thing that maybe it's a hat.
Uh, no, but I will take this whole thing off to show it to you because it's kind of intertwined in there, and I can't take it off. But it's
Oh, I see.
from Pride Parade
Oh,
last year.
nice. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Um, and a carrot. There, I've gotten
Oh,
it out.
oh, the pink and the carrot are separate. Okay.
Yeah, I actually didn't know they were separate until to right now. I thought I had mixed them up. Great. Okay. I'm gonna give you one more. Um, and okay, I'm gonna give you one more. Um, Shannon, will you put your hair up?
Um, yes. And then I'll take it right back down though, not permanent, because I don't have a thing to hold it up forever, but I can put it up for you right now. What about like this?
Yeah, I think that looks great.
Thank you.
Cool. Maybe I'll throw to you, like what do you find is difficult about this framework, being the respondent?
Well, what's challenging is being really present with both what you're asking and what I actually want. Because what I'm set up to do in my brain is even as you're speaking, already anticipate and have an answer.
Uh-huh.
Like there's something about myself that says like, oh, that means you're smart or you're prepared or you, but really being able to see, wow, what is she asking? What might she want? And what feels right to me?
Yeah.
That effort.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing when we have to try to like switch our parasympathetic response to just say yes, oh gosh, somebody's asking, and actually take the moment, just the beat to think about what we're being asked. I imagine how many things in my life would have been different if I had actually taken a beat to say, yeah, I do want to stay in tonight. I don't want to go to that party. Yes, or whatever it might
Right.
be. And I think in work also, it can be really difficult. I work in not-for-profit now, but the healthcare industry is also something that is fast-paced. Things are always urgent. There are always pressing
Yes.
needs for people. And so
Multiple priorities you're juggling all the time.
yeah. And so finding that way to tap in and know that like you hold the power to yes, if or no, but in a way that doesn't have to be combative. As you can see, it can actually be engaging. We might have come up with things. If I ask you to do something and you say no, but I'll do something else, I might actually get closer to what I'm actually asking for, and it might be of the benefit of other people because I might have not asked it, properly or fully, or I might not have been thinking as wide. And in the theater world, oftentimes that's like, can you turn upstage at this point? No, but I want to walk straight over to him and then I want to make the move. Oh, yeah, that's powerful. Actually, that's more aligned. In TV, especially when we're doing an episodic where there's a character but different directors for every block, it might be no, because my character wouldn't do that, but my character would do this. Oh, great. Now we're diving deeper into something that I don't know about. So, um,
It's
love.
beautiful, the possibility of it. I want to ask you like an expert challenge question about this, which is what happens if your boundaries change over time? So, like sometimes we, in a work setting, you're not negotiating every single interaction. We
Right.
come up with these like standard operating procedures, or people get used to this is how my manager responds to this. And maybe it needs to be rediscussed or renegotiated because we have a new piece of information, or there's a different crisis, or there's a different bandwidth for engaging. So, how do you think about this in your framework about reopening a conversation or being the one to prompt a new discussion?
Yeah. So I think like context always has to come before consent. You can't say yes or no to something if you don't actually understand the context. So after context, consent, we move into that communication piece where, sometimes that no but is, um, it could potentially be, um, or a yes if, uh, yes, I can do that if you help me realign my priorities because I don't have capacity to complete
This is great.
as you've asked it, or um, no, because this other thing has appeared and it's more urgent, but I will help you find the person who can respond to that in a time manner that feels like what you're looking for. So, I think like the the ability to acknowledge that there's been change or shifts to an individual norm actually gives you more flexibility with the framework as opposed to less.
Yeah. So you're saying like, what I got from that was, hey, uh, bringing up the context that's shifted as part of the yes, if, no, but answer.
Yeah, totally, totally.
Yep.
And hopefully you're speaking to someone who understands what you're saying and understands that that's you leaning in, not pushing away.
Yeah, this is so relevant too for how I think about containers, which is that they don't always stay the same over time, because what might be generous and truthful at one moment or phase of our career or part of our life is not always true. And so it can be really challenging, I think, to revisit some of these containers in our family, our chosen family, or community relationships, or even in these work relationships where there's these set norms of how to engage,
Yeah,
but rethinking them rather than just being boundaries, but rather as containers that can be shaped and shifted over time so that we can appropriately respond, is really helpful. And this is a great tool to help prompt how we would think about starting those discussions, both internally in our brain, but also externally with whoever we want to level set a new way of showing up with.
totally, totally. Um, like circling back to the other side, it's like if the script says they kiss, there are 4,500, ways that we can do that, right? So the
Mhm.
container is they do this thing. Our job is to figure out where our storytelling happens, to find all the spaces within that container so that we can tell the best story, or,
Yes.
you know, in a work setting so that we can move forward with the best process, the best outcome. So basically same.
Yes. So we both acknowledge the myriad of things that are happening in our worlds right now, like the multiple crises and chaos that's happening, particularly in the US, that also ripples around the world due to
Yeah.
the actions by our new administration. And I'm wondering, like, what's one key takeaway you have about why boundaries are important at this time? Like, why in the middle of all of this?
Uh, because so much is at risk, so much is at stake, so much, you know, feels like it can be taken away. But your integrity, your boundary, your story, your needs is something that cannot be stripped away without you giving that power. And so I think setting boundaries, even small ones, help us practice, you know, our own personal non-negotiables. They help us get really clear on when it's time to get up and you know, stand for something, and when something
Yeah.
actually sits in the container. So um, I think that's why it's important to hold our own boundaries.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think being able to find ways that we have our autonomy in this space and boundaries is one of them. And I'm so committed to continually thinking about how we show up because I think people power and creativity and resilience are the answers to this uncertainty and
Yeah.
disruption. Like we need each other. And so to be able to be engaged in ways that are so authentic, whether that's bringing the plant closer or untangling the pink ribbon from the carrot. So we know it's two different things. And of course, these are both metaphors, are ways we're going to find solutions through these, what seem like insurmountable or unsolvable problems.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think you're like, what is sitting with you? What are you holding?
What I'm holding is this invitation to really be present with my yeses and nos and turn them into, in fact, I think you give this as a challenge, so I don't want to steal it from you. So maybe I ping it back to you and say, what is your challenge that you give
Okay.
people? Because you've given it to me when we had our prep call for this, and that's really stayed with me, and that's what I'm holding.
Yeah. Okay. So the challenge is for 1 hour, one workday, one week, try to see what happens if you engage in responses with yes if and no but, and find your edges of where there is a definite yes or a definite no. But try
Yes.
to engage and see what happens. See if it gets more creative. See if it gets more difficult. See if you get more clear with the asks. Try it out and see what happens.
Yeah, I love that you just put a little timestamp on it too. Do it for an hour or a day or a week because we don't have to make it this change forever, but really leaning into how we can practice the yes, if, and no, but response to being fully present in
Yeah.
relationships. That's what I'm holding.
All right. Great.
Thank you
Uh,
so much, Cecily. I'm so excited to see how readers respond and how we continue to practice showing up for each other in these uncertain times.
yeah, absolutely. It's always a joy, Shannon.
All right. Thank you so much.